Pregame.com.
Welcome back to Pregame.tv. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio, Ken Thomson, and no Brian Leonard this week. He's out of town.
Either that or the diet's working.
He said it, Brian, not me.
Yeah,
not me. All I'll say is that I was in Reno over the weekend, and there's a certain candy store in Reno. And when I walked in,
wait, don't tell me you forgot my chocolates.
No, I didn't forget your chocolates. They're in my bag. But when I walked in, the lady goes, "Where's your buddy?" Right. That's how much of an impression Brian Leonard made on it. Yeah,
he leaves the card open when he goes in there.
And all I can say is, when I said he didn't make the trip, the lady just went.
Yep, there goes.
She must work on commission.
Oh, no. No, and let him know, because that's a cool little place. And Brian turned me on to the chocolate malt balls, and I love those things, man. And so these, when I got them, especially the milk chocolate, man, those are ridiculous, man. So it is good to find those little places in each of your destinations that you like to go back to.
Yeah, I have a lot of those little destinations
you do.
I like to go back to. But let's get to businesses at hand. And I want to say one thing. I can't tip the hat yet because he's not allowed to say it. Officially tomorrow, check out Ken Thomson's SportsX radio show here in Las Vegas tomorrow. Major announcement for Ken. And that's all I can say. You'll be able to say it tomorrow officially.
Exactly.
We're teasing it a little bit. Not an April Fool's joke, but big news from Ken tomorrow. So check out his show here in Las Vegas, and that is on
AM 720 KDWN.
You got it. All right. Ken, this is going to be your free pick. We're going to take a look at Charlotte and Orlando on Friday night. We're taping on Thursday. And Ken, end of the season NBA, it's always dicey, when you're looking at these teams, which teams don't, give a rat's ass. Let's be honest about it. This season, we want it to be over with. We want to start golfing. It's been dismal. We're not going to the playoffs. We're waiting to watch the ping pong balls. And then there's teams, obviously, fighting for playoff spots, trying to get in or move around for positioning. So, when you enter this last 10 days of the NBA season and looking at some of these games, how do you factor things in? Is there anything you look that are predominant for you? Do you want to just look at teams that have something to play for? Because we all know you're going to pay a tariff for those teams.
There is no doubt. And also, you want to look at the coaches. You want to look at teams that are playing with heart. Like when I look at the NHL, I look at the Calgary Flames. They've been out of it for a while. But this is a team that's playing hard every night, night in, night out. You want those teams, where you look and you go, wow, even though this team's out of it, they're playing with heart. They're playing for job position, some of these guys. And, they think that they have a chance to be on that squad next year. So you want to look and see where you can pick and choose your spots, but also really look at the teams that are not only jockeying for position, better matchups possibly in that first round, but also teams that are fighting for their lives, like Phoenix, Memphis, those teams in the West, and of course the Knicks and some of the others in the East. And again, I've got that pet peeve, even though I'm a Knicks fan. I don't want them making the playoffs. I can't stand teams that are that far under 500 making the playoffs, but I do realize somebody in the East will be that far under 500 and make the playoffs.
It is the East, and the Knicks, as we talk going in, we're taping on Thursday, the Knicks got a big win Wednesday night, which got them the final playoff spot at the moment. They're battling back and forth with Atlanta in the East for that final playoff spot.
Let me ask you real quick before we go, but how much do you think Phil Jackson's hiring has impacted that? Because they know Phil Jackson's going to come in and put his signature on that roster, and I know some of these guys right now, they're fearing they won't have a job.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to look at it. And are you, being a Knicks fan, let me ask you, are you buying in that Carmelo will stay in New York now that Phil Jackson's there, or do you think he's going to go out and test the market?
I think that Carmelo will stay there. I think he realizes that Phil is a guy that is going to put pieces around him and make the team and try. That's what Phil does. I mean, I will give him credit for that, because I always got on him that he had to have the two best players, whether it's Pippen and Jordan, whether it was Shaq and Kobe, that he had to be that guy before he got on the bench. But he does, and Chuck and I talked about, Chuck's a big Bulls fan, he does mesh chemistry together well, and egos, he's able to massage those egos and keep some type of normalcy in the locker room. So I give him credit, and I think that's what he'll try and do with the Knicks. Easier said than done, but if he does that, hey, maybe you should go to the Magic, because he will be a true magician to fix this Knicks squad.
Yeah, and that's something, it's a point that people look and really don't realize how hard it is. They see when a team signs a bunch of superstars and they expect things to happen immediately. Mm-hmm. And you're dealing with when you've got superstars that were the guy on their team, and now you put them together with three guys that were the guy, like, and what I'm going to is the big three in Miami. It took a while for them. I think they started out 9-8. Whenever the big three went to Miami with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron, and people are like, what's wrong with the Heat? Well, you've got to learn everybody's role and everybody learning how to play together and not be stepping on each other's toes. And sometimes it's almost a part where you don't want to ruffle the waters. And I think that was a problem early with Miami, where LeBron clearly came down there. It was Dwayne Wade's team, but, the minute LeBron James shows up anywhere, that's changing. It's going to be his team. But I think early on, a lot of times, shots that he would have taken, maybe he was passing up, not to, ruffle egos.
And remember that with the Knicks with Stoudemire. I mean, does anybody even mention Amari Stoudemire anymore? This guy was a major impact player in the NBA for years. Yeah,
and Carmelo, there's only so many basketballs to go around. And one of the knocks on Carmelo over his career is, he loves to put the ball up. Now, last night they had a big win, and Carmelo didn't take a lot of shots in that game. Knicks shot 60% from the floor against, a Brooklyn team that was in a bad scheduling spot. But let's get to this one here, and you've got Orlando, clearly a team that the season's been over for a long time with them, playing a Charlotte team. What kind of things you're looking at? You're going to be, big number on this one. We're projecting it at -9 for Friday night.
Yeah, I actually had it a little higher at about 10.5. Chuck and I looked at power rankings and then throw a little home court in there, but 10.5, somewhere like that. But I like the way that Charlotte's playing now. This is a team that they know they're going to be in the postseason, but they're not content there. I know they'd like to finish over 500, and we've seen them go up that ladder, get right there, and get stepped on. I mean, 3 or 4 times. And they're there again, one game within 500. They're back home. Now, they did lose to Orlando last week by 5 points in overtime. And, again, we look at Orlando as a team that's tanking, but, trying to get some more ping pong balls. But I think this may be a good spot for Charlotte to get back to that 500 plateau with, it'll leave them 6 games to go. They'll be 38-38 if they win it.
Well, 2 points of things that you just mentioned that I'll touch upon, and then we'll throw it to you to get your official play. The game that they lost to Orlando last week, bad scheduling, but that was immediately after they upset Brooklyn, who had been playing great basketball. They caught Brooklyn in a bad scheduling spot. The game went to overtime and everything, and they took care of Brooklyn. So a natural letdown looking past a team like Orlando. That's not a surprise to me as a situational handicapper. And then the other point being one game under 500. I actually use that as a handicapping tool. Anytime a team has that chance to get to 500, I think there's just a little added motivation that night, because it's like, the season's starting over, in a mental image to them, as opposed to being under 500. And I think that's a big monument for them to get to a plateau, and we'll see if they can do it on Friday. But you know what? This is your free pick. Let's make it official.
All right. All right, and I will go with Charlotte at home, and Marco looking at the line between 9 and 10.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I like the game, and I know Orlando played with a little more heart than they have played. They had dropped 11 in a row or whatever it was, and really struggling out of the gate. But they got back-to-back wins last week, including that overtime 110-105 victory. Like Marco said, a bad scheduling spot for Charlotte. Looking for Charlotte, though, to take care of business. And you look at this team as far as against the spread, pretty darn good. 43-29-3. That'll get it done. That'll make you some good money. 31-41-3 for Orlando. I love Oladipo. I love Vucevic. I love Aflalo, the UCLA kid, and of course Jameer Nelson running the point. These 4 guys, I think, are a good nucleus for Orlando to build on next year, and I think you'll see some pieces there. But this year, still a year where they look, and they need another good draft choice like they got Oladipo last year. I think they need a couple more things to go there to turn that franchise around. For Charlotte, I love the way this team's playing down the stretch. They're playing with heart. Even their losses have been closely contested. They come off a 30-point rout at Philadelphia, 123-93, no big deal. But to go on the road and still win by 30 against a team that we know finally broke that 26-game losing streak still showed that they were in complete control from start to finish. And when you look at the key pieces, Al Jefferson, Kemba Walker, those are the two guys that really make this team go. I'm looking for those two guys to excel. Gerald Henderson, you got McRoberts, Gilchrist. These guys are part of that nucleus that should help them get off to a good start. And if they do that, I see them expanding on this game, winning it by double digits, somewhere in the neighborhood between 12 and 16 points. And I look for them to take care of business. Again, Orlando playing out the string. The guys that I mentioned, including Tobias Harris, who's actually played pretty well. And then you have Doran Lamb and Etwan Moore. These are other guys that I think will be part of that front seven there for Orlando down the stretch. But again, a team 21-53, not expecting a lot from them. Now, I follow the NBA throughout the season, but I really hit the college basketball. When it gets to this part of the season where the college is winding down, I'll look and pick and choose my spots in the NBA. This is a spot that I think is a good spot for Charlotte, like Marco says, to get to 500 and try and get over 500 before the postseason and then see what they can do. But either way, it's a successful season for the Charlotte Bobcats and looking for them to take care of business. And, of course, they do get their nickname, the Hornets, back next year. So, but this way, this night, I'm going to take the Bobcats, take them, lay the points, whether it's double digits or not. If it's 9, 10, 10.5, 11, I think they're good between, like I said, between 12 and 16 points.
All right, great stuff from Ken. And I can tell you, Ken, personally, I will never have a play on video on the Orlando Magic simply because I don't want to have to read those names.
Afflalo. And I knew Aaron Afflalo. I've been watching him for years, and I'm a Pac-12 guy, and it was just like stuck there. But you got the 2 Fs and the 2 Ls. And
I'd butcher that roster up, that's for sure. All right, there you go. Ken says to take Charlotte and lay the wood on Friday night with the Charlotte Bobcats. We're going to be right back. Next up, we're going to go to some CBI tournament action. It's the championship game. Fresno State, Siena. That's up next. Pregame.tv.